Hey guys, on today's episode, I've got Shekhar Kapoor, who is VP of Marketing at ConvertCart.com. ConvertCart has a really powerful approach to conversion optimization, where obviously they run tests like you normally would with CRO, but they also have a full technology backend that really enables them to iterate tests really quickly and to scale what works really quickly. So at the end of the day, you can test faster, test better, and ultimately improve results. What we're going to dig into with Shekhar on this episode is some of the unique perspectives that he has from seeing thousands of e-com CRO tests. So we're not going to be talking about the typical stuff you normally see in a blog post of 5 tips to improve conversions. We're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty on a few specific tactics that you can use to improve conversions on your store. So you don't want to miss this one. Dig in, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you implement. Welcome to Ecommerce Townhall, where 6, 7, and 8-figure e-commerce store leaders learn how to scale and streamline to get to the next level. On each episode, you'll see strategies from the industry experts behind successful stores that you can take back and apply with your teams right away. The show is brought to you by helpflow.com. Helpflow provides 24/7 live chat teams to over 100 e-commerce stores and can help you drive more sales while providing an awesome customer experience through their live chat agents. Check them out at helpflow.com. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey guys, welcome to Ecommerce Townhall. Super excited to dig into today's topic. Today I've got Shekhar Kapoor. He's VP Marketing at ConvertCart.com. ConvertCart's helped over 500 stores, increase conversions by as much as 30% or more. So they really understand their stuff when it comes to CRO, and we worked with them on a number of clients. And so, it's really a hot topic in e-commerce. There's a lot of resources you can look at and a lot of best practices. There's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of people out there, but it's hard, especially with stores in our audience at 6 and 7 figures and above. Like, these are not new stores. It's hard to get things in place that are going to really move the needle when you're at that scale. And so that's really what we want to dig into with Shekhar today. And so we're going to look at a couple different angles, but the takeaway I want you guys to get is, really methodical ways for stores to increase conversions and do it the way that, sophisticated CRO guys do. So Shekhar, super excited to have you. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time. Before we dig into the nitty gritty of everything, Give me a little bit of your background, kind of paint a picture. I know your background, but give some context to everybody listening.
Thanks a lot, John. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And as far as I go, I've personally was in the marketing and sales consulting business for about more than 7 years. After having worked, full time for a bunch of B2B, B2C companies, on sales and marketing. And when I came across ConvertCart, I was, to be honest with you, blown away with the way we were doing conversion optimization. I hadn't looked at conversion optimization as seriously as I do now before I was introduced to ConvertCart. And that's really where, I saw the potential. If you really see what truly matters in the way my horizon to conversion optimization has opened up, is you said 500 plus stores that we work with right now. We run an average of 1 to 2 experiments a month for them, on an ongoing basis. So we're talking about roughly 6,000 experiments we're running every year. And I, of course, overlook the sales and marketing, divisions here. And I personally have spoken to at least 1,000 e-commerce entrepreneurs. That's what I could keep a tab on, to be honest with you, over the last 4 years. So yeah, it's been a ride.
Nice. I'm curious, what are some of the big things that stand out as you talk to all these e-com guys and girls to really understand, like, what are some misconceptions around CRO, or when somebody comes to you, especially with an established store? Like, the majority of our audience, 6 and 7 figures, some 8. So like, they're not, starting from scratch. But even then, I noticed they have misconceptions. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen in those conversations that you're able to kind of unlock a different perspective in these guys?
So for all the companies and the businesses that I've spoken with, or individuals that I've spoken with, I would largely put them in 3 different buckets. So there are businesses or business owners that are largely completely unaware about conversion rate optimization. They don't know the benefits of optimization. They've not tried it. They know their experience probably needs to be better, but they're not taking a serious shot at it. So I call them, there's no better way to put it, but illiterate entrepreneurs, right? They're not literate about conversion optimization. Then there are people who are trying, so they're using some minor tools, but they're not successful, of course, because they're not really doing full-blown optimization. They're not using complex solutions to solve problems like product discovery or trust, so on and so forth. And then the third one is people who are aware that they truly need to solve this problem. They are trying solutions one after the other, and they're not successful. So largely what I've seen is about 99% of the people that I've met, they're not successful with optimization. And the primary reason for that is because it's a complex process of analyzing data and finding a problem, coming up with the right solution for those problems on the side. So for example, you may analyze data and find that product discovery is really difficult on the site, right? People are just hovering from one page to another, and the journey is just broken, and you want to fix that problem. You'll probably go sign up with a product discovery solution, maybe improve your search, maybe work on navigation. But then your ability to do that is going to depend on the ability of either the tools that you use or the teams that you hire. There's definitely nothing that's sort of a all-in-one setting out there. And that's the reason, if you look at the metrics for some of the most major SaaS tools that are available out there, that are in the conversion rate optimization or the A/B testing space, they see a 30 to 40% churn rate on an annual basis, right? So their customers leave them on an ongoing basis because it's incredibly hard to see success when you use these third-party solutions. So invariably, that's one common sort of pattern that I've seen. So there are people who don't know they should be working on optimization, and people who know and they're working on optimization, but neither of them is really successful. And that's purely because people don't fully understand how tough it could be to basically optimize conversions and to work on their site's experience.
Got it. There's so much we could dig into, and I know there's going to be like probably 4 or 5 like major areas we'll dig into, kind of like we were chatting about before. But I want to spend a couple minutes on what you just said. And the question is really, what is at a high level the right way for a brand to do CRO? And that doesn't mean like how to do everything, but you mentioned, a testing process. You mentioned 1 to 2 experiments a month. I'm sure there's a way you prioritize those and structure those. You mentioned, there's different tools out there that do different things. Like, what's the framework at a high level of how to properly run CRO for an established brand?
So the first place you would want to start is with data. So you wouldn't be surprised that we often meet businesses that are doing upper 7 figures in revenue, and they're still not great in the way they track data using even Google Analytics or otherwise. So that's the first place to start. You have to have airtight visibility on absolutely each and every event that happens on your site. Now, whether you're using third-party tools to do that, or you're using an analytics, Google Analytics that is, or something else, it's up to you. You could hire an expert off of any freelancer site and just set it up properly. That's super important, because the more data you have, and as you collect data over time, the more clarity you will have on who your customer is, why they're your customer, and then you can extrapolate that back into how can you get more of that kind of people. So that's the first place to start. The second thing is to have a serious analyst, or sit down and analyze how your funnel looks. Just look at your most fundamental funnel, right? So look at where traffic enters the site. Look at what are the channels that are bringing you the most amount of money, and what is the journey that people take on your site to finally put that cash in your pocket, or finally buy those products from you. What are the questions that they have in mind, right? So once you've really decoded what is it that works, you will instantly start to get clarity on what is it that's not working, because you would see where the journeys are failing. Where are people falling off? Why are they falling off? What are they not interacting with, and so on and so forth. That will immediately then, of course, point at what solutions could possibly solve those problems. One of the other interesting things is you have to have a handle on behavior. You have to have a handle on just fundamental stuff like trust, clarity of value proposition. Is there friction on the site, right? Is there something that's too confusing? Because there's an interesting way to put it. As entrepreneurs, and I have a friend, Rishi. He runs this company called Frictionless Commerce. So he's a guru for product page optimization. He does copy like in the God mode, but he says, entrepreneurs are likely to be, too close to the problem. So they will probably never look at their own site and truly be able to scrutinize it. That's also why we do free audits for sites where we say, you know what, let us find the problem on your site. You can walk away with the problem if you want. Don't work with us, but let us at least find it out for you. So once you've really scrutinized the site and found the right problems, and now that's when you're chasing the right solution. So I think 70% of the success depends on finding the right problem. The remaining 30% is just plain execution, right? Getting the right designer, designing something, going and running the optimization. You could use an A/B testing tool, or if the problem is super straightforward and it's a hole you would want to plug, you could just run that implementation. So, for example, if you want to fix your search, you'll just probably sign up with a search solution or hire a developer to fix your search. Just get it done, and you will instantly start to see a lift. But as I said, 70% of the effort is just finding the problem. The remaining 30 is purely just nailing it down with the solution.
Interesting. One of my takeaways from that is really even if you're not laser focused on increasing conversions right now, and like that's not your goal this quarter, is like to get a proper testing routine in place. Make sure the data is collecting, right? Make sure you got your e-commerce data and analytics. Like we still see that happen with brands that, especially heavy Facebook driven brands where they've scaled the whole thing on Facebook ads. The pixel's set up well and the Facebook ads account tracks revenue and like they run everything in there, but they don't have like e-commerce tracking set up in analytics, right? Which is a huge missed opportunity when you want to retroactively go back. So just having that stuff in place is key. And then that gives you that baseline really to move forward with. I want to switch gears and talk through like what are some of the biggest ways that you've seen to improve conversions? Like what's the low hanging fruit? What are the big opportunities that you see? I know we talked about search and site navigation and all those things. Like let's kind of dig into some of that. Search I think was the first big one that we talked about. Product discovery, getting that right. What are some of the mistakes you see stores make, or missed opportunities when it comes to search? Like let's dig into that.
Sure. I think it's a massive area, to be honest. You to first understand that search is incredibly fundamental to e-commerce today. Okay. And that's not for us to debate, to be honest with you. That's not because, hey, you know what, you're selling something that people will probably want to search for when they come on a site. No, that's not the logic. The logic is that's what people inherently behave like. People inherently are, they search everywhere in our lives, right? So that's practically what if I'm cooking and the temperature of the pan is not too accurate, I'll probably go Google first, before even giving it a shot. So what's really happening is people are using search incredibly aggressively across the board. Amazon is actually more than 55% of the total product searches that happen in the world today. So Amazon has actually surpassed Google, in terms of the number of products that are being searched online. What that truly means is that people use search beyond what it's meant for. So, search on a Shopify site is meant for people to find products that are on that site, right? That's what it's meant for. But people are going to type in stuff that is probably not going to be that. They're going to be typing in their favorite colors. They're going to be typing in, what they think your product looks or sounds like or feels like. And then you've got to be able to serve amazing results to them so that they convert. So search is probably the most, the human to technology connection there is next level. And you got to crack that and you got to work on it very consciously. So I look at search as a funnel. You have to have, so the first thing is, what percentage of your site visitors use search? You look at that data first, right? There's one thing that I can tell you right off the bat, that people that use a search bar on a site, of course, this is true for sites upwards of 30 or 40 products, 30 or 40, SKUs. But for people that use, search on a site, they normally convert at least 10 times better, if not more, than people who don't use the site search, right? So you're talking about the highest quality traffic. The people with the highest intent are the ones who are going to use the search bar. So the first thing is how many people actually use the search bar. The second is what percentage of them convert. And the third is what percentage of them bounce off. So now if your search is truly even searches, serving results that matter. So if 90% of the people that made the search are going to bounce off instantly as soon as they see the results, you're serving them completely, broken results. So that's the first bit, which is search, first part, which is, search usage. The second part is serving the results. So you've got to be able to translate your product feed, your product information into really intuitive results. So normally what a good search solution would do is not only would it search for the right product name, it would also search the product's description, the product's reviews, to serve results that are relevant to what the user is searching for. So and what you're also looking to do is, and which is why, in the way that we do things, it is worked out beautifully well for our customers, is we will never sort of set up and forget about anything such as a search, right? We will never set up and forget about. In fact, that's true for everything. That's true for email marketing, which is also something that we do. That's true for reviews. That's true for search. That's true for everything. You cannot set up and forget about anything. So with search, especially, what you can do is, once you've set it up, you can continuously analyze what are the queries that people are searching for on the site, what are the queries they're entering on their search bar, and that will tell you, whether they're finding what they're looking for or not. Like there are, phone repair part sites, auto part sites that we've worked with, where we have seen search queries in the hundreds or the thousands of parts that they never had in their inventory, and they've ended up starting new business lines because people were inherently coming and searching for stuff. So that's insane. That's data that's completely, nobody even looks at that data today.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So
and
that sounds like super complicated to get in place. I know you guys have tools, so I'm not like plugging you guys, but if somebody's not using ConvertCart, right? Like, how do they go about doing that, of really like tuning search and then monitoring the metrics of search, and then essentially like doing CRO just on that search funnel? Like what's the framework of how they do that?
In all honesty, I'm not, of course, we do that fantastically well, and I think we are great at it. So that's obviously there, but there are search tools available that you can just plug onto the site and you can, get going. So there is a varied degree of sort of, complexity and varied degree of flexibility with which you can use them. So some of them will allow everything, but they're going to be, you need to be half an Einstein to be able to do that. And the other ones are not going to be as flexible as you would want. And the other thing is, you've got to keep business use cases in mind, right? So for example, in a lot of cases, people will only search for the SKU number. They will not search for, because the site is so specific, the business is such that they'll just search for the exact product that they're looking for. But in other cases, that they're doing the exact opposite. They're just searching for some really vague terms, and you go to connect the product. So I think half of the, I think less than half, 30 to 40% of the success depends on the tool you choose. The remaining is really what you do with it.
Got it. So that process, like similar to CRO earlier, right? Like signing up for the different CRO tools you see in these groups, like is not the answer. It's the process of how you use those. It's having the data, it's analyzing that data and running tests. So I definitely hear you on that.
Moreover, with search, and especially if you look at the devices, if you look at desktop and if you look at mobile, desktop is more navigation friendly. You will see that a conversion rate on desktop is generally twice that of mobile, because mobile is not navigation friendly. Shopify themes, most of them inherently have the menu button, the hamburger icon on the top left side of the screen, which is the hardest place to reach on a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so people, they're just trying to make their journey shorter. So they'll just shoot for the search bar. And if that serves, crap results, so then, yeah, God help you.
Yeah. So search, I didn't realize how deep you could go into search, of like consistently monitoring queries and running tests on, query by query results, and, essentially just doing CRO just within the search side. I want to step back a little higher level and go into more navigation, like we talked about, and then mobile. But anything else to add on the search side specifically, other than, running that search process the way you run CRO on the rest of the website, like thinking of it like a funnel? Anything else big to add on search?
I think depending on the business, I would want to sort of, change the amount of emphasis that's given to search in the experience as such. I think your company does a fantastic job of, helping people find what they're looking for on the site. That's the most direct way of making that happen. Chat is very natural as well, and people are going to end up asking at some point, hey, you know what, this is what I'm looking for, do you have it? And if there's somebody manning the other side of the chat instead of just a robot. I hate talking to chatbots, by the way. So I'm a big advocate of what you guys are doing. So that's also a search bar, really speaking. That's also search. That's also discovery. Yep. It's a lot of other things, but it's also discovery. So that definitely helps. But as far as search goes, if you're a business that has thousands of products, Like we worked with a business that had 600,000 SKUs. Right. So that's a lot of products. So what we did for them is we put the search bar front and center in the middle of the screen, and we, basically their entire homepage was just for discovery. So you had all the brands they, featured, all the possible, vehicles that they supported. So it was an auto parts store, of course.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. Let's dig into the navigation side, right? So like search is an element of navigation, but let's dig into the things that stores need to consider on the navigation side of like how they're structuring nav and sub nav, and the differences on mobile versus desktop, and filtering products and all those types of things. I know search is a big part of that, but what are some other things that you guys start to realize in your testing routine that can have really big impact as far as how you structure navigation?
Right. So a couple of data points you may want to take a look at if you want to find problems there are the time that somebody spends on your site versus the number of pages they view. So if you see people up jumping across too many pages, they're probably looking for something that they're not able to find. We also look at another interesting data point, which is actually more related to product page optimization, which we can talk about later. But you would see that there may be a sort of anomaly you may find with category page, your collections page, the amount of time spent, how far the user scrolls down, and how they're able to, how many products they engage with from each category. So basically, you're trying to understand if at all, are they a shopper or are they just jumping around? Where site nav plays an important role is how specific can you make the how specific can you make it for the user when they're finding something, or let's turn the table around. How specific of a request can you generate from the user, right? So if you're selling fashion, you could just have t-shirts, right? Or you could have t-shirts men and women, or you could have t-shirts men, and then you can have either sizes or colors, right? Or you could have polos or crew necks and different types of t-shirts. So the more specific you get, the better it is, typically speaking, unless if you're a deals store and you just want people to take a look at those 80% off, that kind of stuff. So if you're doing that gimmicky stuff, then I think you're anyways going to be a business that's driving a lot of your traffic directly to the product page. So navigation doesn't matter for you at all. But you got to get more specific with the navigation. At least attempt to do that. One of the ways in which you could also do that is use product selection wizards, or create these flows within your experience. There's this site we could probably put the link up for the audience. It's called repairsuniverse.com. We've done it for them. So they're a phone repair parts store, and we've helped them create a wizard. So you could really nail down what you want without having to go through the navigation or search or anything else.
Got it. Yeah, I've seen that with product recommendation quizzes and things like that. I know it's different than a wizard, but it's kind of like that same concept of asking questions down a flow that leads to these are the 3 products out of 600 that are probably a fit for you, right? We do that a little bit for certain clients on the chat conversation. So we'll like ask them that in conversations, naturally get them down to what products they're interested in, and then basically link them to collections or pre-filtered collections. What are some of the technical limitations you guys see to get that stuff in place? Because I think like sidebar, layered navigation, different people call it different things, but like it's not, I think we've all experienced those, or we know, okay, like we would benefit by just having people be able to drill down and, click down in the sidebar or something. But it seems like maybe it's a Shopify thing, I'm not sure, but it just seems like some stores struggle with getting that stuff in place. What are the big technical limitations to getting that in place? And like what general direction should a store be looking at with their web team to say, okay, here's how we could solve it?
So there are 2 ways to do it. I think the first step is more iterative, where you're trying to crack what works for you. And the second step is where you're sure something works and you just want to code it in and keep it for good. The first one I think is more important. I think Shopify and in fact, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, Magento, all of these e-commerce platforms now allow for a lot of overlay optimization or overlay customization. Like for example, in our case, how we do it for our clients, we just have them add a JavaScript snippet to the site, and all of the improvements that we run are run as an overlay. So there is zero involvement from the client's technical team or the design team or anybody else for that matter. The entire ownership is ours, and the improvements will run as a JavaScript overlay, and they'll run asynchronously. So what that really, and that's important, because what that means is that there'll be no negative impact on the site load times, and that's great, right? So that's when you would want to iterate and sort of perfect what is it that you're looking for, right? How do you want your sidebar to look? How do you want your navigation to look? Once you've nailed down with a few tests how you want it to look on mobile or how you want to look on desktop, you can then code it in and make that change permanent on your site. The other thing is, which is good that you mentioned, that is you could and you should actually crack this experience separately, um, you know, for mobile and desktop and for other devices, basically. So, and you could do that. So you could actually look at data separately when you're A/B testing on how conversion rates are influenced depending on the experience that you serve for mobile and for desktop, and then serve completely different experiences in both. I mean, of course, it's going to be different, but I'm saying they could be drastically different depending on what converts, and make conversion and experience the most primary piece, basically.
Got it. Yeah. So what I'm really hearing is testing it first before you hard code it in, and also desktop versus mobile, like it's going to behave very differently. So I think that's a good segue into what we had riffed on a little bit before about really like product pages and product pages for mobile specifically. What are some of the big things that stores need to get right when it comes to mobile, and different optimization elements that are really important for mobile? How are you guys thinking about that with clients?
So product pages are the most important pages on an e-commerce site. That's where the action is, right? So that's the central piece in the optimization process. I don't want to say apart from, of course, the cart page, but
Yeah.
but product page is where the decision is made. Cart page is where that decision is materialized. It's brought into reality, right? So both are equally important. But if we were to optimize a product page, it is 100% a function of data, in the way that product page generates a lot of data, right? That's where you will see the most number of mouse interactions, the most amount of time spent, the most farther somebody would, further down somebody would scroll. So those are the things that you're going to really have to put to use. The other thing is, see, we at ConvertCart and all the other companies that I've consulted and worked with over the last many years, I've always encouraged companies to be very outward looking. A lot of the cases, companies are very inward looking, right? So they're always looking at, what could we do better? And, what is something that I could do better with my team or better with my technology? Sometimes that often leads to people reinventing the wheel, which is not necessary. It shouldn't be important. There are some amazing sites out there that are doing a stellar job at converting customers. Some of them are going to be your competitors, right? Some of them are going to be from different industries, and you feel free to make art your own. I have a book. It's called Steal Like an Artist. It's by this artist called Austin Klein. Yeah, so it's right across from where I'm sitting right now. And that's all he talks about in the book. He says it's okay to steal as long as you make the stolen piece of art your own. So you should not reinvent the wheel. But if you come back to product page optimization, I see companies obsessing over A/B testing the color of the call to action button, right? And really insignificant stuff that is not going to change the customer's behavior. Are you more likely to click on a button if it's red or if it's green? Nobody gives a damn, So you got to focus on the right problem, and you got to crack 2 or 3 key things. You got to first crack the structure of the page itself. You need to make sure you answer 3 questions incredibly well, which is, why should I buy what you're selling? Why should I buy it from you and not somebody else? And why should I do that right now? Like, these are some really important questions if you're trying to sell something to somebody. Do it in your site's experience. This is relevant, not only relevant business advice, sales advice, this is relevant e-commerce optimization advice as well. So that means your value propositions need to be clear. Your social proof and trusted information needs to be clear. Price should be clear. Reviews should be clear. Product images should be fantastic. So those are some really basic things. The rest of the optimization is going to purely depend on data. I see a lot of sites running product ads and they're driving a lot of traffic on their product pages directly. And that means they're shortening that traffic's journey and they're relying on their product pages to be landing pages to convert hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. That's going to make optimization a little bit harder because you have shorter journeys. So it's harder to figure out what worked. But how we would typically do it, and for different devices, is we would look at. So let's just say we figure out that there's a product description video, and people who watched the video, they converted 20% better. Let's just say that's the hypothesis, right? You know what? If people watch the video more, I think the conversion rate is going to go up because the video makes a very compelling case for the product. So what we're going to do with the A/B test is we're going to make the video the primary thing they see instead of the images when they come to the product page, right? So we're going to run that A/B test, and we'll run that A/B test across devices, across channels. So people coming from paid, organic, direct, other channels, and people that are coming from mobile and desktop, everybody's going to see that. So you let that test run. And normally what I would recommend companies to do, and we do that for our clients, is we will then, backtrack the test. So we'll see, okay, maybe the test itself was neutral and there's no improvement. But how did that A/B test do for the traffic split on just mobile, or for the traffic split on just desktop, or for the traffic split for the paid traffic on mobile alone? And turns out you will find some small wins in when you break an A/B test down, and that's really where the success is. So because if you're going to be if you are getting into optimization to run this one test that's going to change your life, and you're going to go buy a Tesla, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So you got to, what you're looking for is several small wins to get to that one big victory. That's really what you're after.
Got it. Yeah, that's something I know Mitch had mentioned initially when we first chatted that that was something that you guys have been able to do really well, is not necessarily figure out what's the right color of the product button, but instead, for return visitors from Facebook that go to this, section of the site, this is how to get, a 20% bump in conversion on those guys, right? So it's sections of your visitors or cohorts of your visitors. Dig a little bit deeper into that part of what are some of the insights you guys have seen, or examples from clients that you've seen where you found cohorts of visitors, or a successful test within a cohort of visitors that you've then rolled out for that cohort in the future? So rather than just what tests have worked within certain cohorts, so people can kind of get their gears turning themselves.
So we see that all the time. Okay, it's not something that's rare at all. It's very common. And that's why, I see a lot of people in the space, and I see a lot of influencers in the space. The other day I was looking at this roundtable. I don't remember who it was, forget about it. But I was seeing a lot of talk about, sort of not passing these statements in marketing that are, sweeping statements. And for example, somebody said, what, Facebook ads are going to be screwed with the iOS update. So the other guy said, don't say that, you don't know what's going to happen, etc. So I think, we don't need to behave that way. So there's a lot of data when I'm making some of these statements. For example, I made a statement about search. There's a lot of confidence because I've seen a lot of data backing that up, right? And I've seen that across hundreds of sites, across at least 40 industries. And I've seen business owners themselves saying, wow, that's amazing. They've themselves seen it. So bottom line with this kind of optimization, or a common example that I can tell you is, very simply put, always repeat visitors are going to convert significantly better than new visitors. That's obvious. Everybody knows that. You will also see that the conversion rate for repeat visitors on mobile and desktop will be comparable. Although the overall conversion rate on mobile and desktop will always be very different. So mobile will normally convert half as good as desktop. But for repeat visitors, they don't care if they're on mobile or on desktop. It'll still be comparable in their case. But there are a few things that people don't look at. For example, there's something called a lapse point. A lapse point is essentially the number of days it takes for a visitor to become a churn customer. Every business has a lapse point. They don't calculate it, of course. We help them calculate that. But a lapse point is essentially, for example, for somebody who's selling fashion, 60 days could be the lapse point, which is if that customer has not bought from you within 60 days, they're probably never going to buy from you again. Right. And
so I want to slow down for that part. So lapse point is the number of days before a new visitor or somebody that hasn't bought is not going to buy. Like after that point, they're very unlikely to buy.
Sorry, so lapse point is a metric applicable only to your existing customers. So somebody who's bought from you once, if they don't buy again for the next 60 days, the period is lapsed and they're not going to buy from you ever again. But that's lapse. So 60 days is your lapse point, right? So we were able to in many cases run an A/B test and see how that A/B test performed for returning visitors, right? So we of course ran an A/B test, for example, on the cart page, right? We added some recommendations maybe, right? So we decided to cross sell, and we saw the A/B test results for the entire site. Then we split those test results and saw them separately for new visitors and returning visitors. For returning visitors, the ones that were past the lapse point and they were visiting the site, we were able to lift their conversion rate. So we basically pushed the lapse point further from 60 to 80 or even 90 days because we converted them. So the lifetime value of the customer went up. That's phenomenal. I mean, if for anybody who listens to this and they understand what I'm talking about, that's what you're after. That's what makes an e-commerce business successful. You don't want to make people buy your product once. You want to, really put your hands deep into their pockets and probably have their credit card on file forever. And they should be happy doing that.
Yeah. That's powerful. So that I mean, that's a takeaway. I don't know if I've heard our audience actually really dig into that at a granular level. Everybody knows about repeat orders, but the concept of what is the lapse point and what can you do to extend that out? That's a whole testing process in and of itself, right? What other channel level insights have you guys seen? That's a good little golden nugget. Like anything else to dig into on like channel level CRO?
Yeah. So see, that's actually one of the first things that our clients look at and go, wow, because it takes time for this some of the more complex stuff to happen, because you need to have a lot of data to run highly statistically significant stuff, right? So also, I mean, we are thrilled when we sign up clients that have a lot of traffic, because then we can do a lot. But we are equally thrilled when they're slightly smaller, because we are working directly with the owners and we have like a yes on almost everything we suggest. So that makes our job also equally exciting. So we can do really adventurous stuff. But as far as channel level stuff goes, now there's a serious amount of money being spent on Google, for example, or your Facebook ads and that kind of stuff. And one thing that can turn the balance sheet around for an e-commerce business is how your paid traffic converts. If it converts just 20% better, your return on ad spend is going to change forever. You'll be able to spend more money on ads, which means you'll be able to bring more traffic, which then again converts a little bit better. So your revenue is going up for good, right? You're set basically. And that's why we look at each channel separately. And you've got to do that. But most businesses want us to take a look at the paid channel. I mean, they're not aware that we can do that. Once they find out that we can look at it at channel level, they say, hey, you know what? Why don't you look at my paid traffic? I'm paying my agency hundreds of thousands of dollars, every year. And I don't know what's really happening. Our ROAS has been, so we always also, an interesting question we always ask is, has your ROAS grown over the last 3 years or 2 years? In most cases, it hasn't, right? So people don't normally look at the year-on-year trend, but if you plot the year-on-year trend for something like ROAS for most e-commerce companies, it'll sit right on top of each other. There's no change in their trend for the year. Season's better, off season's worse. So one of the key things we would want to do is look at their paid traffic specifically, focus aggressively on building a solid email list for them from that traffic, leveraging that email list to then make sure that they convert through email marketing. You create better retargeting audiences out of them. Do whatever you can on the demand gen side, on the ad side, But on the CRO side, whatever it is that we can do to analyze, because there is, basis which, if you look at paid channel, if you look at the paid channel for any business, you will instantly get a lot of data from the business, right? So this is how much we spend, this is how much revenue we make, this is our ROAS. The average order value for that channel is going to be different. Then you will see other data. So how many visits does it take for a customer to actually convert? How much time do they spend on the site? So those metrics are going to really matter. So what you will instantly also start to realize is, of the total traffic they drive from that channel, 50% of the traffic they've been driving is completely crap, right? So there are cases where we are also able to tell them, hey, you know what? Just stop any ads you're running on Washington and Ohio. Completely leave them out. You have zero conversions from those regions. So we, in fact, built this tool called ppcgear.com. It's under approval at the moment. It's not yet out. But that, at the click of a button, tells people where they are leaking money in their AdWords. Or, what are some of the low, that's unrelated to CRO, but I find it really painful if companies, spend money unproductively. And I think that's not a function of them not being able to spend it productively. It's the fact that, as I said, entrepreneurs too close to the problem. They're too passionate about what they're doing. They don't have the time to scrutinize what their agency is doing for them. So there's no better way out for them.
I'm smiling because we've been going through this. We've been doing some ad tests for HelpFlow specifically, and
happy to take a look.
The business owner's too close to the problem, right? The way I would word it, or what I kind of got to this aha moment last week, is as I'm digging deeper into the data, I realized, like, unemotionally and objectively, like, it's not working. We need to change. We need to course correct the ad spend and look at a number of different things, just normal advertising stuff. But I really wanted it to work. And it was kind of like one of my main rocks for this past quarter. And I said, I think we can figure it out. I think we can get it to work. And I'm the one that makes a decision on that, right? So it's like, if I want to keep writing the check, I can write the check. But that doesn't mean it's actually going to work. And there wasn't actually data to support of saying, okay, like, let's just continue going down the path. And so I totally resonate with that, of like, business owners just get too close to the problem. And I think having somebody like you guys that just thinks of it methodically and has a framework that the business owner understands. It's not like some secret sauce where you just send them reports and they go, oh my God, I don't know how they're doing this. Like, when you show people how to run effective CRO and how to analyze it and how to just do it methodically, it gives them a lot more confidence and clarity, right? I want to respect your time. I know we're coming up on time. Are there any other like major insights or takeaways that you think are, most important for listeners? They're all really like 6-7 figure stores. So they've got traffic, they're spending money on ads. A lot of them are probably doing some level of CRO already, or they think they are. What are the major insights you think, somebody should take away from this?
I think one of the important things is, I think the general reliance on marketing agencies is I think there has to be an end to that at some point. I was looking at a lot of data, so we were talking to our own clients. I think we share a few names, and we happen to know a few people commonly. So generally speaking, for all the people that I've spoken to, I've seen that e-commerce companies are likely to switch agency every 6 to 7 months at an average. So that's how impatient, that those switches are. And that's unfortunate, because neither does the agency get any long-term value from that engagement. And if you switched 6, 7, 8 months after signing up with an agency, definitely you've leaked some money. You've not seen any value there. And the number one reason for that is because the expectation is that somebody from outside of a business, probably not having worked in the same industry as you, and does not own any technology. That's the key piece. They don't own any technology. So they're not technologists. They are merely human resource. That's the problem they solve, right? That's a problem an agency solves. They come into your business, understand this context, and then help you solve everything. So there are two kinds of entrepreneurs, right? And this is a question that you've got to ask yourself. Each entrepreneur needs to ask themselves. There are a few fundamental pillars that any business survives on. You have a value proposition, there's a price you sell it at, and there's a market you sell it to. If you have these three things in place and you're 100% confident on that you have a large market that you can sell an exciting offering to, in online, of course, you've got to get your hands dirty, but get the right kind of experts along with you at all times. So you will drastically reduce the time you take to solve each channel or each source of revenue. um, and that's really where that's exactly why ConvertCart was basically born. We thought, hey, if you spend money on an agency, they don't own any technology, so that's definitely not working. If you go and sign up with the tool on your own, you don't have the time to use it. If you hire a team, then you don't know how to run that team because you don't know what they're going to do. So ConvertCart sort of best of both worlds. So we have a team of experts that does the optimization, and these people own the technology. So we have our own all-in-one conversion and optimization tool suite, and this comes together. So the owners of the technology are the end users, and that has a massive impact on what we're capable of. And I think through this conversation, it's fairly easy to understand that I think we're doing a fair job, in my opinion. We know our stuff. So I think I just see a lot of struggle in the e-commerce businesses that are in the $500,000 to $5 million revenue range. From the $5 million onwards, it's pure optimization. I think anybody who's at $5 million, they just need to invest $100,000 a year or less on optimization, only optimization, nothing more. If they just do that, they will double in size in a year, or at least a year and a half max, because they've cracked the most fundamental problems. For anybody smaller than that, I just see them struggling with the agencies, leaking a lot of money. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, we see that too. So we get really deep with our clients to really see who they're working with and pay traffic and all those types of things. And we do see, until they find the right agencies, they just cycle. People just cycle through agencies. It's a little bit rough for really both of them, like you said. I want to ask
Very
you
expensive.
if very expensive. Yes. So I look at that as, not only is it agency expensive, right? But then if you're talking paid traffic, it's not just the agency fee. If you spend $100,000 on paid traffic for the ad budget and it doesn't work very effectively, then that's a problem. That's a hard expense. So I think there's a lot to consider there. I want to ask you here as we wrap up, if people want to continue the conversation or the, additional resources you'd recommend, I want you to kind of list those here in a second, but just to kind of recap, some of the main things that we covered, what I'm really seeing in my notes, is, the importance of having that data tracking in place. So one of the things that Shekhar talked about is even if you're not focused on CRO right now, make sure analytics is set up well, make sure you're tracking the events, make sure you have everything tracking so that as you start to focus on that, you guys can see that, and see that data. He also talked about leveraging search to really maximize conversions. And, my takeaway from that was thinking of search as a funnel, right? Basically somebody sees a search box, right? Somebody engages in the search box, somebody searches twice in the search box, somebody bounces in the search box, somebody converts after the search box. The whole thing's a funnel, even though it's just a search box. Being able to really think of it like that and optimize that entire process can do really, really well. We also talked about navigation, getting the navigation side right, similar methodology as the search box side. Product pages for mobile. And then the other part I think that was huge was granular CRO, at the channel level, right? So figuring out how do you optimize for different cohorts of visitors? How do you focus in just on paid traffic? How do you get that lapse point and focus on increasing that, right? Or extending that out. So a lot of good nuggets. We're going to have a lot in the show notes as well. But if people want to continue the conversation with you, Shekhar, or dig deeper into some of the stuff you talked about, where can they continue the conversation? And if there's one big resource on your site that would be best for them to really dig in deeper on their own, what would that be?
So, from a conversation perspective, we're going to make it a conversation itself. So we do these really exhaustive site audits, and we'd be happy to run one of those for anybody who's going through this. So you can just go to convertcart.com and, there's a free site audit button. Just hit that, fill the form. We'll be in touch, or reach out to me. I can probably put my email ID, under wherever we host this, Shekhar at convertcart.com. As far as content goes, we've actually published a lot of very good content. So we're going to be in a couple of days out with a bunch of ways to deal with the whole new iOS update, and what e-commerce companies can do to regardless to generate demand, even if Facebook falls flat on its face, because we know there's a lot of, demand sitting there for people, and we want to make sure there's something out, that helps them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll link that up in the show notes, but for anybody listening, the email address is SHEKHAR at ConvertCart.com. But again, we'll put that in the show notes. You can check it out at ecommercetownhall.com. Thanks to everyone for listening. I hope that you guys find what Shekhar dug into is helpful and something that you can implement. And we'd love to hear what you guys actually implement and how it's going, and to kind of get deeper into your respective businesses in the comments. So drop those in ecommercetownhall.com. Shekhar, thank you so much for your insight today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have an awesome week.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to E-Commerce Town Hall. For more resources related to today's episode, visit ecommercetownhall.com. And don't forget to check out HelpFlow. HelpFlow provides 24/7 live chat teams to over 100 e-commerce stores and can drive more sales while providing an awesome customer experience through their live chat agents. HelpFlow's done-for-you 24/7 live chat team can predict and save abandons directly on your website by engaging with chat. They can also use conversational upsells to increase average order value in a way that feels good to visitors. Ultimately, they're going to provide an overall amazing brand experience to your customers. Learn more today at helpflow.com.